All right. Say something, Mike.
I'm saying something. I'm saying words.
All right. That's enough of
Hopefully
that.
people hear that.
All right. Say something again.
I'm saying more things. Lots of things that I'm saying.
Hey, what's up, everybody? If you can hear me, write down. What could they write down? That could be interesting and creative. Oh, draw like a little image using just like characters. I'll give you guys an example. Someone said sounds good, but it's all good. Keep it PG, y'all. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see if I can do this. A little short sword right there. Super short sword. The little icon. For those of you who are in the chat, you can see the little short sword. Everyone can hear me. That's fine. Potatoes works. I like potatoes. Wow, that made me hungry. Just the word potatoes. Oh, let me stretch. Oh, Dan's got the spirit. So does Isaiah. Already with the questions, dude. Straight out of the gate. I haven't even started painting. What brush that be? Just like right.
I don't know, dude.
Right,
I haven't the brush yet.
Right away, dude. All right. I wonder if I can do like a multiple stream where I can stream on Instagram and on Facebook. Sorry, on YouTube.
I wonder if Restream has that for Instagram.
I don't know. I don't think so. Because it's like a different format too. So I'm just going to kind of warm up. I haven't done any drawings of any kind today. So I'm just going to go ahead and start just sketching something. Are you typing? I can hear you typing. Whatever the heck you're doing.
I'm sorry. Drawing. My keypad.
I think you're not.
I can switch mics. I can switch to the one that's less sensitive if you want.
No, I think this is fine. It'll just add ambience. Instead of like birds and nature in the background, we just hear mics. We hear mics. Incessant typing. All right, so now that I'm feeling warmed up, I'm getting a little bit of a drawing on here. Yeah, let's begin. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask any kind of question at any kind of time. I don't mind. A couple of things that I want to kind of start to do, I'll just kind of get it out of the way, is stream more. So me and Mike, we've talked it over in the last couple of days in the week about what we can do to expand the channel. It's a great opportunity for many people from all around the world to be able to learn and get more insight about what I'm about and help people become better artists and answer questions. In this way is very helpful. But it's more of like a time thing that's been really problematic for me. But it's time again to kind of just try to see if I can get on the bandwagon. Every once in a while, I do this stream for a couple weeks, maybe a month, and then I just fall off. And so I need to try something new every time to see what works. So this is the newest thing that I'm trying, which is just like straight up just like a schedule, just like a raw schedule, and putting it on a day that I know I'm pretty consistently not that busy, which is the Monday. And so I thought, okay, why don't we do Monday? Let's find a good prime time to do, get as many people involved live. So this is about the right time too for most people. If it's not good for you, if you're listening in after the fact, we're going to try to see if we can get alternative times. But really, it's about whether I can do it. You know, although it would be nice to be, keeping other people in mind when I'm thinking about convenience. But ultimately, I think everybody benefits if I just do them in general, right? And so I'm going to be focused on what I'm capable of doing. And then from there, we'll decide. We have other ideas too for like just making more video content on this platform. I'm planning on doing a lot of educational stuff in general on different platforms, including my own. And then, I'm just like getting out there more. Right now, I'm planning a trip with some of my buddies. Who among you guys are on the East Coast? Like closer to the New York area. because if you are, as I was saying that, I think I can get you guys. Let me see. Let me get this real quick. Oh, I think I accidentally closed my YouTube stream. Give me 1 second. Go back there. Yeah. All right, got back. Oh, what the? Why is the link so massive? What the? All right, I'll just put it in there later. I'll take a break and then I'll just grab the link.
You can send me the link and then I'll make it shorter.
Yeah, okay, that works. Here, I'll send it to you. This is just a sign-up list for those of you who are interested. So me and my buddies, we've been talking for a while, and we've always wanted to do a thing over in the East Coast. And I was talking to somebody else who happened to live out there, and I was just like, you know what? Like, it's not a bad idea. I should just do it and see like what the first steps are. I know I have a lot of fans and friends who live over there, so I was like, you know what? Let's just make something happen. Could be a good times. And so yeah, feel free to add yourself to that list if you want to know more about it. We're thinking hosting a workshop. And what I want to do is try to do this more often, where I'll gather a group of people who are more than happy or willing to fly me out as a group and like house me. And I just do these more personal, more one-on-one type, or not one-on-one, but like these more like in-person workshops and hangouts. And the best way to do that is to get people involved. So like if you feel like, oh man, I live in so-and-so America, and then I'd be, all right, well, this is how much it would cost to get me out there. So then we would just need to build a mailing list and then get like X amount of people to pitch in. And then I'll just come out. And then we'll just like find a place and we'll have like a hangout session and we'll do it for like an extended amount of time. And I think this is a great way to like, bring out one of your favorite artists to just come and hang out with you, But right now we're going to do it with like New York, I think, because I have a lot of friends who are already there. We're already talking. We're like, oh, it's going to be great. And they have some really good places that they want to go. The person I'm talking with right now about this is Modern Day James. He's really excited about it. And so is Steve Zapata. And so we're like really thinking about how we can make this happen. And so if you are on the East Coast or you're willing to go to the East Coast, let's say you're within driving distance, yeah, sign up, and then you might be able to help us pitch in to bring me out. Also, I'm planning on doing some more stuff, but until I get this stuff ironed out, I will let you guys know. But I feel like the best way to let people know is through, streaming and just talking to them and talking to you guys like now, like what I'm doing right now. And so, what else do we got going on? I'm trying to see. Yeah, so like regularly I want to stream. So that's like the biggest thing. And some of the other stuff that we want to do is like Feedback Fridays. Right now we're not sure when and how we're going to do that. I have some ideas of how we can do it, but I just need to put it into motion. Essentially what that means is that every Friday I'm going to try to, lottery style select a couple of people's images that are really cool. Or people's images that I think need a lot of work, that are submitted somewhere. We'll figure it out. Maybe we'll reinvigorate the Discord, and then just do it there, and then that way I can give people feedback, not obviously everybody, but lucky couple, and just give like some pretty thoughtful advice. And then hopefully that advice will also be helpful to everyone else who's listening. But again, the whole idea is that like, I've been doing a lot of freelance for the last several months. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like back to like teacher mode, and I just kind of get back to education and really focus on that. I like to work though, mainly because it teaches me how to be a better teacher. Because when I take on more jobs and different kinds of tasks and things that are much harder, and I experience like the world of like being a worker, an employee, is very helpful to me. But then every once in a while I have these moments where things start to slow down. And because they slow down, and then I have more inspiration to get back to teaching. I have more time again. And so now things have slowed down. I'm like, all right, let's try to get back onto the teaching bandwagon now that I have a lot more time on my hand. And another thing that we're planning on doing is more events in general, like places that have events, like Lightbox. And this is what I want to kind of talk about too. I'm going to start talking about this, and then we'll go into any kind of questions that people have. Are you collecting any of the questions, by the way? I just realized maybe you should be.
No, I should. Hold
All
on.
right.
Actually, I want to change mics because I can hear my mom on the phone, and I'm sure that it might pick it up. So
It's, we all want to know what's going on.
oh god, no.
Oh no, oh no. But yeah, so with all that out of the way, kind of like the what is that kind of stuff called? Just like getting the laundry out of the way. Let's talk about Lightbox. So this is something that I wanted to talk about months ago, or like a month ago or so. Just the experience of that event, and talk about how events in general are really nice, and that people should go to these events, and people should try to find ways to reconnect with their community. I just saw a video talking about how like this high school teacher, I don't know if this is entirely true for all of us. Most of us are probably well out of high school. But like currently people of a certain age bracket lack the ability to, communicate to one another on a like a real person-to-person situation. And I feel that that's true a lot for our community, the artistic community, especially those who are, concept artists. It's really easy to kind of like never talk to anybody else. It's really easy to kind of just be in your own camp and just kind of just work. But the reality is, like, if you want to really do well in this industry, you need to make friends, and making friends and talking to people is part of the job. Now, if you don't really care about making friends and you don't really care about the job, then really this advice is really not that helpful to you. Like, it really is not going to matter. But if you are someone who cares about like your career and wants to do better and wants to achieve better things in your own capacities, you gotta like connect with people that are just better. I was hanging out with some people, and they didn't want to go to Lightbox. They were feeling like the industry was just like trash and that they didn't have an opportunity. And there's a lot of reasons they were saying why they shouldn't go. And I always tell people you should find reasons why you should go, because it's really easy to tell yourself what's the reasons why you can't or why you shouldn't. But if you can give yourself a good reason why you should go, and if that reason is good enough for you to actually do it, then maybe you should do it, right? So for instance, in this case, this person was like talking about how the industry is trash and all this stuff, and there's all this crazy stuff going on. And I said, a lot of that is true. I can't disagree with a lot of what you're saying. But you have to think about it like this too, that although that's true, it's not true for everybody. And even though there's a lot of things that are happening, and there's some wishy-washy stuff that I think is questionable for sure, it doesn't necessarily affect you directly. In fact, the reason why you think this way is because of your circles. And I know like this person I was hanging out with, like I just knew the kind of people that they were hanging out with themselves, like outside of this conversation. And I know these people aren't the most they're not the best in terms of motivators. They're always focused on the negative. And I always encourage people to try to be careful of your emotional diet, right? Like, what are you digesting emotionally? Are you constantly engaging in conversations that are just always negative? Are you always looking at videos and arguments and talking points that are just always negative? Are you yourself, every time you are communicating with people, starting with a negative conversation? Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with being skeptical, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with being critical, like having an opinion that's pretty critical. I have very critical opinions all the time. And I can talk about a couple, right? But But that doesn't mean that I'm a negative person. Like, I am actually incredibly positive. If you ever meet me in real life, which many of you might have, or if you met me in events or talk to me in person, most of the time people come away from the conversations or hanging out with me as a very positive influence in life. And in case in point, I was explaining to this person is like this is probably what's happening, and he was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, I think you're right. Like, that's all I'm engaging in, and like all this stuff. I gave him a lot of motivational insight too. I gave him a lot of good advice on why he might be thinking this way, what he should be doing, and including going to Lightbox. I said, you need to go to Lightbox. And so he did. So he went, he found me, and then he thanked me because he realized that I was right. Like, he was constantly engaged in maybe not the most helpful environment. And he said that when he went to Lightbox and he met all of these artists that he's admired and just felt the positive vibes, he was just like, whoa, man, like, this is night and day. And he felt way more hopeful. And then sure enough, a couple weeks later, I believe he got an opportunity. He got some freelance. And he was just kind of like shocked just how the change of perception really moves the dial a little bit more than he expected. Now, I'm not saying that if you just have positive energy that all of a sudden things are going to be better for you right away. All I'm saying is that positive energy is just helpful, right? It's just a great tool to keep you on task. It's the negative energy. Think about what it does, right? Like, it literally just makes you not do anything because based off of your philosophy or your intuition at that moment, everything sucks. What's the point, right? And obviously that does not help. If you think about it in the long term, what happens, right? You think this way, and again, maybe you're right. Maybe there's some truth to your reasonings, right? You're like, oh, there's a lot of competition. Hey, man, you're right. There is a lot of competition. It's like, oh man, like all these artists already have like really good skills. I'm like still just figuring it out. You're right. There's a lot of artists that are really good already right now. Absolutely. So how does that actually affect you? It affects you negatively, right? If you just think about that and thinking about that's no reason to get started. But what ends up happening? And all of you guys will know that this will be very familiar. What ends up happening? So you start to agree with yourself. You start to believe that this is the reality and there is no point. But then you start to kind of like question your life a bit more. Time goes on and you start to be really depressed or have a lot of anxiety because you do want to work in the industry. It just seems so unfair. And you just keep practicing and then you immediately give up, because you just look at how awesome so-and-so's on ArtStation, and they really are just killing it. And it feels like impossible to catch up to this person. Well, when you do that, you slowly but surely stop painting more. You stop practicing consistently. You start talking crap about other people. You start to do everything that will actually not help you, right? And you create this perpetual problem where you should be getting better and you should be practicing, but you don't because you don't like where you're at. You don't like what's going on. And you just kind of quit. See, that's ultimately the problem. Now think about it now in this regard. You change gears a bit. You say, okay, you know what? There is competition, but I'm sure when Anthony Jones was starting out, or some of these other artists that really admire, I'm sure there was competition when they were starting out. Like, how did they get through it? I'm sure they just work through it. I mean, I look at these websites and it seems they are hiring concept artists. Yeah, granted, maybe they are looking for higher level and maybe more senior level stuff. But I mean, how am I ever going to get senior level if I don't even just start getting into some sort of job at all? And how am I even going to get a job if I don't have a portfolio? So maybe I should just get started, right? I'm sure you guys have had the conversation. Well, how can I get that job if I don't have experience? Well, then you need to start finding ways to get experience, right? And there's not just 2 jobs, right? There's not just 2 companies that are hiring. There's many companies. So you think, okay, although Blizzard and Riot and Sony, some of these large companies I really like, yeah, they're pretty obvious because they're very mainstream and popular. But what about the smaller companies? Where can I find them? Oh, there's this event locally to me that is hiring. There's like a bunch of hiring like a kind of like a trade show or job fair, but with these smaller studios. Maybe I should go to that and bring my portfolio and get some advice. Hey, I heard there's like a bigger event in LA. I'm going to save some money up and drive out there or fly out there and just get some feedback from some of my professional industry, like people that I support, my biggest inspirations. And so you start to just think of solutions instead of pointing out all the problems, right? You start coming up with how you can achieve it potentially versus not even taking that first step. That's ultimately the biggest problem. In fact, I teach a mentorship, and I have a lot of students that ask these types of questions all the time. And a lot of what I do very, very well is that I motivate them and, practically explain to them how the other kind of thinking that they had before was a distraction. It's not that it's wrong, right? It's just a distraction. And when you're distracted, you don't think clearly, right? And when you're not thinking clearly, you make mistakes. And one of the mistakes that you make from this type of thinking is that you don't push your work as much as you should be doing. And so when I went to Lightbox, it wasn't just because I better sell some merch or whatever. I go because I always make new and better connections. And when I went, I made some really strong connections, and it was amazing, and I made some really good friends and I made some new ones. I brought out Mike. He had a really good time. He had a very positive experience as well. And I find that whenever people are really focused in on the little stuff and finding all the reasons why they should not be doing something, it tends to get in the way of their actual ambitions and aspirations, And so Lightbox, if I had to give it a review of an event, I would give it like a 9 out of a 10, almost 10 out of 10. There's only one aspect of it that I think they could have improved upon. And even I talked to them directly about it, and they agreed. So it's very positive that they are going to do very much what I was thinking was a hard one. And the problem that they had was a problem that you would want an event to have, which was that they had multiple speakers going at the same time. So, for instance, imagine you're a character person and you really like you want to see what I have to talk about, but then also like Ryan Meinerding is doing something, and also so and so, like all of your number one favorite artists are all like talking at the same time. So it's really a matter of a choice then, right? Like it's like, which baby do I kill? Because that's how it is. You just gotta like kind of like just suck it up and just watch one. And then on top of that, I don't think they had a big enough venue for some of these speakers. They didn't anticipate that the majority of people that were going to this event were like artists. I think to their to be fair to them, I think that they were thinking it was more like stuff like Comic-Con or something, or maybe like CTN even, where there are a lot of artists there, but they don't necessarily go to all the talks. Where this event, like, people like specifically came because of their favorite artists, and they specifically came because they would want to meet them and hear them talk about stuff. Now they know. I'm almost certain they know that this is the case, and so I think they're going to fix this. And once that's fixed, it's 10 out of 10, man. I don't see. Even if they don't fix that, even if they do something alternatively to just change it, it still would be a pretty high rating. And that event was great for networking. That event was great for meeting new artists and becoming fans of these new artists. And then it was also a great event for someone like me to be connected with my fans, and which made me think about reinvigorating my social presence, reinvigorating my educational platform, and then finding ways to go to you guys instead of you guys coming to me. Like, if you think about it, if it costs me, it costs me like $1,000, let's say $1,000 to fly out anywhere. Let's just say in America, all right? And this is including like some sort of housing, place of stay, you know what I mean? Like a hotel. Now think about it. It's not that it's going to cost cheaper or more, wherever. I'm just saying I don't really care. I don't need to stay in like a super awesome, epic hotel. I don't need to fly first class. I can just show up. We'll have like a place, and then we'll find like some sort of venue and rent it out for the day. There's new places like this. Maybe we could do Airbnb style. There's all kinds of cool stuff that can happen, right? But anyway, if we were to do 1,000, and I imagine that 50 people will be more than happy to show up, right? That's $20 a pop, okay? And that is affordable. If you can get upwards of 50 people, then that's $20 a pop. And if you reverse this number, right? If you were to say only 20 people, like you can get a good group of your friends and there's only 20 of you, all of you guys pitch in $50 and it's possible to fly me out yet again. Foods, drinks, none of that stuff needs to be worried. It's just bring me out there for like a good week or a weekend, like a four-day weekend, and then we'll all hang out. We'll do some workshops, we'll hold sketch groups, we'll talk about art, we'll be buds, and then I'll fly back out. You guys will have that experience, maybe build a community from that experience and expand beyond that. It doesn't always have to be this grand thing. And I'm going to try to test it out right now with my buddies. And so if you guys think that's a good idea, let me know in the comments. I'll like to see that. But anyway, I think it's a good plan. I think it's a good way to do it. And if it works out, I think this is a great. It might be spawn the beginning of a great way to bring your favorite artists to you. Because I have a lot of friends who are really good artists, and they'd be more than happy to want to travel and see y'all too. It'll just cost more, obviously, but one person at a time, and we'll see how it works. But anyway, with that being said, let's answer some questions. And hopefully that little miniature motivational speech was helpful for some of you guys. I know some of you guys are in dark places, so I don't know who you are. I don't, I can't talk to you on a daily basis, but hopefully that my words help you today to at least get you going for the next few days. What were you saying, Mike? I heard you clearing your throat.
Nothing.
Yeah, let's take some questions. I'm sure there was.
Right.
I saw one earlier that I can answer right now. I think it was the first one. Is one I was like, damn, starting hard. Which is the tablet. So I use a Wacom, and I use a small Wacom tablet, and it's like the small version. And I wish it was smaller. This is the smallest it can be. And then I also have a Cintiq, but I don't really use the Cintiq much. But I'm going to be putting together a video about why you should use a Cintiq and what's the advantages of a Cintiq. And if those make sense to you, then you should get one. I'm going to make a video why you should get a small tablet and explain why I use it exclusively. I'll also explain other types of tablets and different types of tools and why you should use them. I think a lot of times, a lot of reviews and product analysis is usually all about just like a grand review, like about why it's good and why it's bad, like pros and cons. I'm only going to focus on why I think you should use it if you are this artist. If you're not this artist, then maybe you should reconsider or watch some of the other videos. But because there might be some people that might have enough money or affordability to get both. For instance, if we were to think about software, it's the same principle. Like I use Photoshop, but I also use Procreate and I use Infinite Painter. I use Fresco. I use like a lot of things. I just installed Dimension, which is a rendering tool that Adobe has just started created. But I also use like Keyshot and I also use 3D Coat. But like, what are the reasons for that? Versus. Because I think a lot of times people only want to know what's the perfect tool, what's the perfect software, and it's just not a reality. There's nothing that I could say that will make that anyone satisfied with that. But if I can explain why it's valuable, I think that can help people determine whether they should get it or not. Anyway, but I haven't yet done that. Like I said, I'm just getting started, getting back to it. Questions though? Any other questions?
I got them.
Got him.
Okay. So, first one was
first fun.
Asked.
What'd you
first
say?
one.
Dang.
First one. You making fun of my words?
I am.
Okay. God damn.
We should do one in Seattle too, by the way. Come out to you guys.
Yeah.
That'd be tight.
It'll be fun.
Anyway,
okay, so Hassan asks, where AJ from?
where AJ from?
Yeah,
Where AJ from?
What brush that be? What tablet you use?
What's your HSB?
What's your HSB? There's a joke that my best friend Kaylin Chalk, we were talking about colors, and then we were talking about like our ethnicity, and I think it's Kaylin said like, what's your HSB?
Yeah, it was where we're streams.
Yeah, and it's based off of the idea that like Photoshop has HSB sliders. Anyway, sorry, let me get to the question.
We need to make a shirt someday.
Yeah, what's your HSB? My HSB is like 30, 25. I'm just kidding. I don't know what it is.
Where are you from? Where are you from?
Where are you from? I am from California. I was not born here, but as far as I'm concerned, I consider myself from California. I sound like I'm from California. I look like I'm from California. So I'm from California. I've lived all over the place though.
Like you're from California.
Huh?
I said you eat like you're from California.
I eat like I'm from California. I sleep like I eat from California. I dance like I'm from California.
Yeah.
I am totally from California. I say hello a lot. I say dude. I say bro. I say brah.
I say hello a lot over in Washington as well. I think it's just a West Coast thing.
I'm liberal, like
hella tight, dude.
Hella liberal. not the annoying kind that's like super woke all the time. I was hanging out with my best buddy this weekend, and he's like, "Hey, what's up, my?" And he like stopped. I was like, "You can say it, dude. We're like best buds. I don't care. I'm not gonna be offended." And then we were just doing lots of stuff like that. It was hilarious. Like he put on some music. It was just like hip hop music, and I was like, "Oh, that's my culture." It's like, thanks for appreciating my culture. And he was cracking up. So I'm not that woke, but I'm definitely like more left leaning. So that's like a California thing. That's what I'm trying to get at. Totally California. Don't worry, to my conservative fan base, I don't think you all are racists. Except for you, and you know who you are.
Yeah.
You know who you are. Anyway.
All right. So Ashlyn asks, how was your surgery recovery?
Oh, that's a very nice question to ask. It was good. I feel great. It's really simple. For those of you who didn't know, I'll just kind of keep it light. I had brain surgery a few years ago because I had a tumor in my pituitary gland. They got rid of it, but what happened was that like I had a lot of different things going on. Like I had I was like pre-diabetic. I had sleep apnea. I had like my sinuses were all messed up, and so I changed my diet. That helped with a lot of that stuff. My sinuses needed to have a surgery because like they're just completely blocked. And so what happened was during the brain surgery, they went in there too. It was like a double surgery. Like they came in and got rid of the blockage and also removed the tumor. So it was kind of like a double whammy. It was really nice though. It worked for quite a while, and then I felt pretty good. And then I just started feeling crappy again. And then I went to my ENT doctor, and he was just like, "Yeah, your blockage is all back again." Because everything else kind of was gone. Like I felt like I was sleeping through the night. I felt pretty woke. And then I eat pretty well. I have like my blood work comes back like super good. Like I think if you were to take shots of my blood, it would like it would give you all the vitamins you need for like a month. So it was, and I didn't have my tumor back. Like we did an MRI, and that's how he found out. He saw in my MRI because he was just like I wanted to get an appointment with him because I was just like maybe I should check in with this doctor. And then he saw my MRI that was for the tumor to see if it came back, and then that's when he saw it. He was like, so as I came in, he's like, I think I know why you're feeling crappy again. And then he showed me, and I was like, oh crap. So then we did that surgery, but it was a smaller surgery, so it wasn't like this intense surgery where they like had to like go in and like. Like it was not the brain tumor all over again. But I feel good. Thanks for asking.
Great. We're all happy about that.
Except for that one fan. He's like,
oh. No, if I catch you, I'm gonna ban your ass.
I don't think I have any fans like that. We'll just make this make believe fan. What's his name or her name? This one fan that just always
should be a girl.
Oh dang!
Equality in the hate.
Yeah, we'll have one of each. We'll have
Brittany.
Hey, we have a student. I have a student named
That's
Brittany.
why I had to do that.
No, she's super sweet. What's wrong with you? No, it's gotta be like a
She's
really
really nice.
fake name so nobody will accidentally be named that.
Tommy. Mm,
All right. Anyways, let's not do this. It was a mistake. Start
you're
off.
over it.
Yeah.
I
What's
got bad names.
what's
Okay, Shaquisha.
Hey, I know Shaquisha. That's my cousin. Oh
Wow.
my gosh. All right.
All right, let's get to the next question.
let's get another
Uh,
question.
let's move on. Dalton asks,
That's
so what
the
happens
that's
when
the
you
troll.
don't do
No, I'm
warm-ups?
just kidding.
It's Dalton. What happens when you don't do warm-ups?
um, I never really do warm ups. I know I started this stream by saying let me just warm up here a little bit. That was actually just more for me to like buy some time to make sure the stream was working and there was no delay. I warm up just by doing other stuff that has nothing to do with drawing, like just waking up, eating good food, hanging out with the family, walking around a bit. You know, like actually physically warm up. I think in terms of painting, I don't really think of it that way because painting to me doesn't necessarily need me to warm up. And even when I design, I think it would be disingenuous to say that there isn't like a ramp up phase, like I'm starting to get into it. But I usually just chop that up to like the first design I do is the design I'm probably not going to keep, you know? So that could definitely be considered like a warm up if I thought of it, like truly, honestly, you know? But I do like a lot of paintings that I don't do anything before. Like just like this is for instance a great example of that. Like I did not draw at all today at all. And I just woke up, you know, went throughout my day, ate like some peanut butter like coconut balls and just started painting this. And it's definitely going to be something I'm going to probably post on all of my platforms, you know? And so yeah, I don't really see a purpose for warming up artistically because usually when I'm drawing something, it's something that I already know how to draw anyway. But I will say that I do study a lot. This is something that has a lot of importance to me, which is I look at a lot of images that I really want to study. In fact, I think this is probably a great way to have some extra content. I don't know if it'll be stream content, but like just like studies sessions. And that could be for the Friday, Feedback Friday. I can start off with my own personal growth and then take on other people's growth or help them grow. It could be a great theme altogether. Just all about growth. All about growth.
Studying, you got to use that brain.
Yeah, it's really hard to like talk and
Yeah.
learn. Like I can't like be like, all right, guys, and this is how you become the greatest artist ever, and give you guys like this really insightful advice. If I'm like also trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing at that time. But it could be cool. I've seen like, especially if it's known beforehand that it's going to be one of the sessions, so you can either sit in or not. But it could be just like one of those things where I'll just put on like royalty-free music, and we'll all just be hanging out. And then at the end or towards the middle, we'll do a Feedback Friday, you know, as a kind of reward for hanging out. Oh man, I went too deep. But ultimately, I need to be concentrating. I cannot do both. Like it looks like I can talk and paint at the same time. I can do that only if I'm like doing something that is not that complicated. And I know this looks super complicated, but that's because it's not complicated for me. I'm a seasoned.
Yeah, I was gonna add that.
Seasoned monster drawing.
Already studied like all this stuff.
Yeah, seasoned concept artist at this type of monsterish drawings. So it's like a walk in the park for me.
All right, let's get to another one. So Anton asks, "Are you watching Draftsman's podcast from Proco?"
Every once in a while, it's super good, man. I like those guys. I'm friends with Proco. We hang out from time to time. And then Marshall Vandruff is one of my favorites. I used to, when I first started out, I used to listen and go to his workshops all the time. So I'm glad to see he's back in it in a really large way, because I think he was kind of more like a like on the road showman. Like he would just kind of like just show up wherever, you know, and you'd have to like know who he was to know where their things were at. Like our friends would tell us, and we'd be like, oh, okay, we'll check it out. And it was great experiences. So I'm happy to see like he's like on this larger platform, you know, because of someone like Proko. But he deserves it. Like Marshall specifically, he's a really, really great educator. I think Proko's great too. I'm just saying, I'm highlighting Marshall Vandross specifically because Proko's already got a lot of great fans, and I'm sure many of you guys are. There's a lot of overlap here, I'm sure. If not, yeah, go check out Proko's stuff. But Marshall is definitely, and I think there's a reason why Proko's even doing the draftsman stuff, because I think it is trying to shine highlights on someone like him. There was one talk that they were talking about that I disagreed with. I remember, and I can talk about that in a little bit. But essentially, like I like other artists doing their thing because there's sometimes disagreements and there's different philosophies. But it's good for everybody because as an educator, you want your students to be able to make up their own mind. You know, what they think is good and what's not good. You know, that's how you have different styles. That's how you have different artists. I think I have a lot of great insight, but I don't have all of it. You know?
Yeah, there's like no one way of doing things.
Absolutely. So I'll give my 2 cents on a thing that they said that I disagree with, and I'm sure like if we were in like a room together talking about it, it would be a really powerful conversation, and all parties involved will come out super smart. Anyway, go ahead. Next question.
Okay.
Maybe I'll save it for another stream. Give myself some content.
Yeah. Jamie Becker asks, what makes a pose more dynamic?
If it tells a story, right? And I mean that in the most generic way. Like if somebody is like holding something or like trying to prevent themselves from getting hit or running away from something, those types of poses really help. If you have a static design with a character that's posing, then I think just having a lot more angles, you know, like having more opportunity for things to feel a little bit shifted. But yeah, anyway, I don't know. Like, I don't normally pose my characters too crazy anyway. Only when I'm doing like my own personal work. But in concepts, I only do it if it's necessary. If it's not necessary, then I don't bother doing it.
Yeah. So would you say that having dynamic poses is more useful in, let's say, storyboarding or illustration?
Illustration and storyboarding, exactly.
Yeah.
It can help in concept art too. The specific examples would be something like if you're designing a character for animation, or you're designing a character that needs to be heavily animated and has a lot of personality, then there might be a lot of real reason to do that. Like you're trying to also design the character. But a lot of what I do professionally, and I can speak to the most, is just cool shit. You know, like things that look really cool. You know, that is my expertise, is to make cool looking images of specifically of characters and creatures and weapons and things that are a little bit more just like objects. These are the things that I do really well at, and I think posing is not that important as long as you're demonstrating some sense of personality and some sense of like we can see the design.
All right. Ryuki Reni-san asks,
Damn, dude, nice.
do you have any upcoming tutorials that you will be releasing soonish?
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
That's part of the, if you missed the very beginning of this talk, I was talking about how I'm going to like basically revamp my educational sector. I'm actually partnering up with ArtStation Learning. So if you're already a part of ArtStation Learning, you're going to get a lot there. And I'm also potentially going to do some videos for some sponsors. There's some software companies that are like finally like, hey man, like we would like for you to do stuff. And if they do that, there's opportunity for me to do it because, you know, they'll pay for my time. And if they do that, then I'll be able to give out free tutorials, you know, which is ideal because the whole reason I want cheap tutorials in the first place is so most people can actually get access to them. But if a company is willing to just pay me, including like ArtStation Learning and some other,
like subsidize that time,
then they're paying me for that time, exactly, and I don't have to charge you guys. I mean, they might charge
essentially paying for you to be able to watch it.
Yeah, they actually
put those on YouTube.
Yeah, I think ArtStation Learning there is a charge, but it's remarkably cheap. And so
it's different.
Yeah, but like the direct sponsorships, like I talked to a couple of companies right now and I said, yeah, I'm probably gonna do this tutorial anyway, right? So either you guys want to give me a part of it, and I'll just say, yeah, these people help pay for it, so there's no foul play there. But then also, if you guys do that, if you guys purchase it, like or sponsor it, then yeah, it's yours, you know, and we can put it on YouTube and it'll be free, and all the people can use it. That'd be great. And obviously, it's marketing for them. It all makes sense, you know. But I was like, if you don't, then I'm just gonna put it out myself and put a fee to it, and I'm not gonna say it was sponsored at all. But I was like saying, like, I'm gonna make this video anyway, so maybe we should talk about it. And so the stuff like this is starting to happen. I'm like, yeah, like I should really go deep into this because there is incentive to do this outside of like outside of the money part of it, because if there is any opportunity to remove the cost for the users or lower the costs, then I'm all in. Because I have some alternative plans that are higher. They're going to be a higher price point, but a lot of value. And like I said, we'll let you guys know about the stuff that happens soon enough. But that's only going to be clearly reaching out to only a couple people. You know, it's not going to be a lot of people. But I feel like this needs to exist because I think people have been looking for something like this. And I want to be a pioneer of this, at least a successful version of it that's really, really powerful. But again, I'll tell you guys more about it when it happens.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do a lightning round. And we got a great turnout. I just looked down. There's like freaking 200 plus people.
Oh wow.
232, man.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Hey, for all of you guys for showing up. I'll answer all you guys' questions right now. But like, if you guys want to see me do a certain type of demo. Write it down right now, and then Mike will collect all these, and then we'll put together a poll later on what you guys want me to do next time I do a stream. Okay? And then that way, I'll reward you guys for just attending. I know you guys are just doing this because you guys are like, oh, man, I want to hear AJ and see AJ do stuff, but it also means a lot to me that there's a lot of support. So with that, it's a two-way street. You guys come and support me, I'll support you guys. So like write down things you guys would like to see, and then we'll lightning round the last few questions, yeah?
All right, just so you know, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, let's lightning round.
I'm not going to get to them all.
Nope, lightning round. Let's do it.
Way too many. Oh, I think there's way too many. Hold on, let me find. I don't know when I stopped writing them down, so I'll have to find that in the chat. But let's get what I have. Okay, so the next one says from Jamie Becker, can you paint Wolverine in your style?
I can. And maybe I will. I think I've actually done a version of him, just a portrait though. But I get what you're saying, like probably like a full-bodied one. Yeah, I'll look into it. Just keep your eyes out on my Instagram and my art station if it happens.
Right,
it's been a while since I've done fan art, so maybe I should do fan art.
Fabio asks, "Hi, bro. Do you think one can benefit from automatic drawing process?"
Yeah, practice? like AI, or what does he mean?
I don't know. It says automatic drawing practice. I don't know what they're interpreting.
Okay, so I'm gonna answer that in two ways, just to make sure I get both perceived intent of that question. So the first perceived intent that I thought was maybe like AI. Yeah, I think AI is tight. Like I think like you can have like a software that can paint, like there's like the NVIDIA one where it does like the photo bashing for you kind of thing, but you just draw a bunch of shapes. That's tight. I'm in for that. Even with your own painting style, I think there's a lot of fishy business there for sure. But like, imagine if I just did like a rough sketch, and then the AI can kind of get the painting finished for me, or it can at least like push it further, you know. And I don't mean like push it further in terms of ideas. Like if I just do a super rough sketch, it can like take it to something a little less refined like this, but somewhere where it saves me 20 minutes. I'm down for that. But the other automatic drawing, like practicing, maybe the other premise of that question is just like practicing things so you just have it as second nature. That's all I'm about. I'm all about that intuitive drawing. But if your intuition is garbage, you need to retrain your intuition. So that's why I mentioned earlier, I study a lot. Like when I draw, like I am basically walking. And what I mean by this is like, think about when you're walking. Do you think about walking? No, right? You just do it. Same here, man. Like whenever I draw, I just draw. Now there are some things that I need to think more about. Like there's some stuff that I don't understand, or I don't have a good grasp over, that's when I use more photo reference, or I use more reference in general because I just don't know any better. But that's kind of my point I was making earlier about like studying a lot. I study things I don't understand. When I was doing streams where I was learning, it was hard because I can't like talk while I'm learning. I can talk while I'm painting, not when I'm learning. Okay, and so anyway,
All right. Rocket Gear asks, during my last
cool name.
mentorship, I was. What? Go ahead.
That's it. Cool name.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Rocket Gear asks, during my last mentorship, I was told that I need to get feedback from a working professional each time I want to post something to ArtStation. Any resources aside from mentorship for that?
He should get what? So yeah.
Feedback from a working professional before you post anything on ArtStation.
I don't know if that was my. That was definitely not my mentorship because I would have not given that advice. And if I did, I don't remember. Maybe you misunderstood. You should post. You should post artwork all the time on ArtStation. If it's not really, if it's like sketches and stuff, I would suggest maybe not do it there. Maybe find somewhere else to post it, like a DeviantArt or Instagram or a blog or something. But yeah, I think your ArtStation should be feathered with what you are capable of doing, like your best work. Not only because it's good to get your work out there and get kind of like that feedback, even if it's indirect, like from seeing how many people engage with your content. But really, it does one thing that people don't consider. It teaches you the habit of posting often. And that habit is really good because that means you're painting more and you're constantly trying to keep yourself accountable. Now, it doesn't mean that your work's great and you're going to get jobs right away. I'm just saying it teaches you very fundamental strategies to make you become a better artist. Because if you know your artwork there is not as good as it needs to be, then you're going to go back and try to replace it with better art. And eventually, if you feel like you have so much more better work, you can always go back and delete the older stuff. But there's never going to be a client that's going to find your portfolio, see how god awful it is. They're going to remember your name, they're going to remember your artwork, and then like put you on a blacklist or like totally discount you and all your efforts. That's not how it works. What most likely will happen is that they'll see your not so good work and just move on. They'll literally just move on. They won't care. They literally would not care. It doesn't mean that they won't eventually care. Eventually you will get better. Eventually your work will start to stand out. Eventually you will have a better fan base that will support you. But until then, you should be not finding reasons not to post. Excuse me. Like I said earlier, you should find reasons why you should do stuff. Like, why should you post more often? You know, ask yourself that question. Anyways, next
Okay,
question.
Lisa Schmidt says, would
What's
you
up, Lisa?
recommend to buy a MacBook Pro 15 or wait for the 16?
I don't think screen size really matters. It's the specs. I like a larger screen because I feel like I could put more stuff onto it. But I've worked with smaller screens and it's no big deal. In fact, I use an iPad a lot and it's definitely smaller than my main screen. All that really matters is that you stop using Macs. I'm just kidding. The real solution to this problem is be a PC. Join PC Master Race.
Join the Master.
Yeah, the first mistake is it doesn't matter how the 16 or the 15. Macs just suck. All right. Anyway, no, it doesn't matter. Like I have friends who use Mac. It's fine. I'm just joking. But like, yeah, don't worry about that too much. I would suggest you think about what you need. Do you need more screen space or do you need more power? Because I know like sometimes smaller laptops will have more battery power because there's just less, and sometimes even better specs in some regards. So it just depends.
Yeah, and then when you compare it to price and whatnot, so
yeah, I think if you just need to get a machine that's dope, the Macs are fine, and that's fine with a capital F.
Windows, if you're interested in Windows, just check out the Gigabyte laptops.
Yes, the Gigabyte laptops are pretty good.
All right, so next question is from Mr. Sanson. They ask if there are people better than me and still if there are people who are better than me and still not getting jobs, how will I get one?
Yeah, so there are people that are better than you. that aren't still getting jobs. That just means you just need to get even better than they are, right? So there are people who are better than me, even, that have a hard time finding jobs, let's say, consistently, right? So that does exist. But I will tell you the difference is usually the people that are better than you that have a hard time getting a job is that they don't post as often as you might think. Like I know an artist that I met at Lightbox and I looked at his work and I said, you're really, really good. And I was like, you need to share your work more often. The problem you're running into is that nobody knows you exist. This is true for most really good artists, because very rarely will you find a really good artist that's having a hard time getting jobs. And when you do, this will be one of the symptoms. Watch, you can do it yourself. You can do the research yourself. Look at how many people are following. Look how often they post, because there's some people that post like once a year. That's very, very, very hard for them to get opportunities when there's someone like me who's posting like every other day when I'm on my prime, And so you got to understand it's really about a matter of just that other part of the equation. It's not just about being good. It's about also connecting with people. And you'll be surprised that connection is pretty, pretty valuable. People want to work with their friends. And if you have a lot of good friends, they're going to help you out, And like I was just talking to one of my old students at Adobe Max about this, and he hired 2 of my students, right? Because he was looking for people. And then I was like, yeah, here's some people. And then he looked at them and then he's like, whoa, this person's pretty good. And they hired them both, And so imagine, and one of those students was like super self-deprecating, super like, I don't want to post. I don't think I'm ready. Like all, I was like, just share, And he did, and he ended up getting work, I had another student who's like, I literally thought was better than me. I still think so. His name is Mackie. And at the time, Massive Black was looking to hire people. Not Massive Black, I'm sorry. Six More Vodka. And I was like, you got to apply, man. And he didn't want to apply. And so I applied for him. He ended up getting the job. And I even told him after, I was like, look, I don't even think I can work at Six More Vodka. And I'm friends with Marco. Like, I don't think he would even want to hire me. You know what I mean? And so, like, that's the reality of it, Of course, it's going to be a challenge. Of course, there's going to be some outlier examples. But the ones who are pretty successful usually also post quite often. Kim Jung-ji was already a great artist before he started posting on Facebook. You know that, right? Like, he wasn't just all of a sudden like, I'm going to post one thing on Facebook and then I'm going to also be good. Like, he was great. He was actually pretty well known in Korea, but not internationally. He lived a very modest and very successful career within Korea. But once he went online and people are like, who is this wizard, this art wizard? It exploded, And that is just always going to be true. And again, you're going to find those people that are going to have a harder time. There could be other factors too. It could be about country. It could be location. It could be circumstances. It's not as simple as you got good work, you get jobs. It could be a lot of things. But if you know more people and you have good work, you increase your chances. That's all I can say. I can't guarantee anything, but it will increase your chances. You definitely decrease your chances by not posting anything, or you don't do anything. Your chances just stay 0, right? And so consider that. It's very helpful.
All right. Scarlett asks, how hard is it to get into art school?
Oh, I don't think art school is very hard to get into. They just want your money. Depends on which art school, I guess. Yeah, that's an easy one.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could draw better than a stick figure, I think you can get into almost everywhere.
How do I start Ashlyn asks, how do I start a portfolio? It's a goal of mine to have by Lightbox.
Oh, that's a great goal because it gives you about a year, right? Yeah. So I would suggest pick a studio that you would like to work for and adopt their style, adopt their kind of aesthetic, and then just start building a portfolio towards that. If you want to be environment, do environments. If you want to do characters, do characters. Now, it doesn't mean you will work there. It just means you will have artwork that looks like that's what they want. And there might be other companies there, or other studios, or other people that will like that, and they'll hire you. Like if you want to work for Pixar, have a Pixar aesthetic in your portfolio. And if you don't know what that looks like, just look at Pixar concept art and then start researching and studying it. But essentially, if Pixar doesn't hire you, like what if DreamWorks or Blue Sky or all these other animation companies that are in the same wheelhouse, and many more that you don't even know about, right? And so like it's just a way to be guided. It's not necessarily a way to get in to that specific studio. And obviously, best case scenario, you do so good that Pixar does actually just hire you straight up because your work just worked out.
Yeah, and then the worst is they give you good feedback.
Yeah, the worst case scenario, they give you great feedback. Especially if you run into a Pixar artist.
And you make friends and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Joseph Casey asks, a small tablet? Dang, what size is your monitor then?
My monitor is big though. It's like a 32-inch one, but it's like 2 or 3 feet away from my face. It's mostly so I can cover my peripheral. Yeah, so what I'm looking at right now, this size is probably close to like it's close. It's like right in between 11 by 17 and 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, like the actual physical size of it. Like think of like a normal printing paper and then just times it by 1.5. That's how much bigger this is. So I definitely, I definitely have a big screen. But like I said, I don't really need it because I sometimes draw like this, and this is most like a postcard. I'm only zoomed in right now because I'm now starting to detail, and I think there's validation to zoom in when you start to detail, just not when you're like first starting your painting.
Jacob asks, best way to print your art?
I don't know. Yeah, if I had an answer, like a good answer to that, I would tell you, but I don't print my art often enough to like, I'm still figuring out. I don't know what the hell
Okay.
This print game's
Lisa
about.
Schmidt asks, would you recommend Adobe Creative Cloud all applications for €35 euros a month?
I would, absolutely, because even though they have Photoshop, like that's all you want to use, they're introducing Fresco too. And I know some people have their opinions about Fresco and Photoshop on the tablet, but it's all like interconnected. And then they also have stocks, Adobe Stock, which is like stock images for like photo bashing. That's really cool. But then you can also, yeah, they have Mixamo. They have Premiere. So if you ever want to do your own video content, you already have it ready to go. After Effects. There's a lot of really good stuff. But if you only paint, then I don't think it is worth it. I think you should just get Adobe Photoshop. It is like a little bit more pricey if you think about it, right? It's like $15, I think, or $20 just for Photoshop. When if you spend 15,
it's actually 10.
Oh, okay, well never mind. Then that's even more reasonable. But like I thought it was like $15, and even with that, I was like,
last I checked, it was 10.
Yeah, it's like, but even with that being true, even that hypothetical situation, I was saying that it was worth it still, even though it was more expensive.
Yeah, right.
And so, but now it's cheaper, so now I'm even more convinced that if all you use is Photoshop, then that's all you need. Don't lie to yourself. Do you make videos? I obviously make videos, so I need that stuff, But like, do you? If you don't, then don't create this false reality pipe dream that you're all of a sudden going to start doing it. Like, just ask yourself, like, what do I actually need? But like I have it because I can afford it too. It's just not that much of a cost. And also like whenever the advantage is whenever they make new stuff, you have it. They update like new apps and stuff, and it's super cool, man. And you're like, all right, dope. Now I got that. Like they just got Substance, so Substance is probably eventually going to be another add-on. But again, if you don't do 3D or you don't do any of that stuff, it's like whatever. It's really not that big.
But if you did, all right. So Mr. Crow DC asks, let's say you have a full-time non-art job. How would you hold yourself accountable to keep mastering your craft and get a pro job in the future?
That's a great question, and this is a good example of people have different circumstances. You just gotta do it. You gotta find time wherever the time is available. I understand a full-time job is a full-time job, and that's your circumstance. But the reality is the industry and people around you in this industry, that's not something you could put on your resume. You can't say, the reason my portfolio is not as good as it could be is because I have a full-time job, Like, I understand, and even the people that would hire you understand why that's a challenge. I get it. They just won't hire you. You know, like it doesn't give you extra points. Like in movies, it does, right? Like in movies, we see the underdog doing all stuff against all odds, but life's not like a movie, you know? And so, my advice, generally speaking, is that you should just, oh yeah, see this new save on the cloud, dude? It's like dope. Anyway, I haven't made a proper, thingy yet. I don't know which version this is. Hold on, I'm gonna save this to my 71. 071.
Ready for another one?
Yeah, hold on, I'm not done with that question. So it's, you know, you can't put on your resume that life's hard. You know, like I understand, I respect it, I know because I have a hard life too. I get it. I'm just saying, like, you got to be realistic. Like, if you need to work a little harder, you might have to. Now, I recommend spending at least 3 to 4 hours every day. For those who work full time, you don't need 8 hours. You don't need 10 hours because that's partly the reason why you're not doing it. Because you're feeling like you need a lot of time before you can even just get started, and that's just not true. You just need to get started, and as soon as you start to do that, as soon as you start to kind of like get the ball rolling and start just doing it consistently, sooner than later it's going to happen. And so 3 to 4 hours. Let's say you spend an hour in the morning, an hour at night, or I'm sorry, hour in the morning, hour at lunch, an hour at night. That's 3 hours, right? If you spend half an hour like somewhere else, or an hour and a half in the morning, or 2 hours in the morning, and then 3 hours at night, you know, like you might have to wake up early. You might have to stop going to the club. You might have to stop partying with your friends. There's going to be sacrifices for those of you who have a full-time job. It's just the reality of it. That's it. Period.
Ivan asks, how do you change the brush size so fast and smoothly? Is it about PC specs?
No, this is not a PC thing. This is just a badass thing. No, just kidding. No, it's just hotkeys. I moved the brackets to R and T, so instead of using the brackets to increase my brush size, I use R and T. I've been doing that since the very beginning of time. Like time began, and then I was there like making hotkeys for Photoshop. Like
Off the jump.
Yeah, like the divine being, whoever that may have been, was there, and he's like, "What are you doing?" So I just sent him my hotkeys in Photoshop. So, but I haven't made Photoshop yet. So I know, just getting ready. Anyway.
I'll be ready.
I'm just making sure they're ready.
I don't know how to pronounce this, but I'll try. Unjani asks, still
Wrong.
a veg? Oh.
Wait, what did you say? Still what?
A veg.
Oh,
Still a veg.
I thought you said something else. I was like, what? What'd you call me?
some more of it. Offensive.
Yep, VeggieTales all the time, man. I told you I'm like from California, dude. Get that vegan lifestyle, man. All about that plant-based.
All right. Monty Q asks, when it comes to breaking down a 3D form, what are some things you do to simplify and render it?
Oh, it's in the question. I simplify. I start very simple: cylinders, square or cubes, spheres. You know, the thing that people have a hard time with whenever it comes to rendering is that they have a hard time rendering the forms, and a lot of that is because they don't know what forms they're rendering. So just get better at rendering like simple forms. You'll be able to render more complex ones. This is my cue to get going. Actually, here my family's back.
Okay, here's another.
The silence is about to end.
Momsa.
What's up, Momsa?
You do mentorships, right? If yes,
I do.
Does a complete beginner can attend?
Yes, sir.
Or do I need
or yes, ma'am.
Some pro baggage? Do I need some pro baggage?
Nope. It's for everybody. If you're at a specific level of skill, I meet you there. I don't put you in a place where you can't handle. If you're very beginner, I'll teach a very beginner at a very beginner level. If you're very high level, then I teach you at that level. Depends on where you're at.
Everyone gets individual homework besides the first assignment. First assignment is
it's like the diagnosis.
Where everyone's at.
Yeah, the first assignment tells me a lot about what you're capable of doing.
Yeah. Okay. Chromeness asks, Do you know of any concept art illustration based events held in the East Coast? I feel like everything's happening in the Pasadena area, but do you know of any other similar events to Lightbox Expo?
I don't know, other than like anime expo. I think there's one actually this weekend. It's like anime stuff, which is similar. Like you might think, oh, there's no there's probably gonna be concept artists there. I know Ross is going. That's how I know about it. But we're starting our own thing, so just join that mailing list I sent earlier. Maybe Mike, you could send that mailing list again. This mailing list specifically is for East Coasters. So if you're on the East Coast and want to go to something, sign up to this mailing list. Yeah, I messaged you and you were.
No, I made a shorter link already.
All right, great, perfect.
I did it earlier in the stream. I'll just post it again.
Yeah.
There you go, folks.
If you want to know more about the mentorship, by the way, just visit my website, robotpencil.net. Mike, maybe you could throw that one in there too. And tutorials and all that good stuff. But like I said, I'm going to try to come back, start doing more streams. But all right, let's just try to get through all the questions now. I'm just going to answer them really quickly.
I totally lost my place, by the way.
Okay.
I just keep it real. I could work backwards, or we can just call it.
All right. Well, we'll just call it then. since Mike really dropped the ball in there.
I'm sorry. It's my fault. Blame me.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut you down, dude. All right. So we'll be better about moderating the questions. You guys probably asked a lot too fast, and he wasn't able to keep up. It's all right. We'll get him good at it. So if you want to ask a question you didn't get to answer for, just try to come in next Monday. We're gonna do it at the same time at 11:30. If there's any change in time, we'll let you know. Just follow me on my Instagram at Robotpencil. That's a great way to know when it's going to happen. But we're going to try to aim for every Monday at 11:30, so that way you guys can have a reliable time to show up, hang out. We can all chat and answer questions. But yeah, great turnout. There's a lot of y'all here. I appreciate y'all. With that being said, cheers.
Wait,
what?
There's still some. So at the end, folks, if you want AJ to paint something specific, go ahead and in the chat write down some ideas you have, and we'll create a poll, and we'll have AJ paint that thing.
Oh yeah, you guys could do that now.
Wolverine
actually,
was one of them.
Yeah, I'm gonna
do that end right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna close out the stream, but the stream chat should still be live for a moment.
Right, I just wanted to remind them.
You're right. So Mike's gonna just collect a large number of them, and then we're gonna grab the ones we think that make the most sense. We'll put a poll. Put on Instagram, and then you guys can vote there. Yeah? All right, man. Peace out, friends. Talk to you guys later.
Bye, guys.